Why were the Nazis so stylish? By Real Men, Real Style. I got no idea. We're gonna look at it. That's gonna be, we're getting canceled, guys. We're getting canceled for sure. We're getting it's official, right? If Twitter sees this it's over. When Twitter sees this, it's over. Also, please consider liking, subscribing. I appreciate it. We'll go in. Yeah, this can't be good. This can't be good. It's gonna be either really horrible or really great. We'll see. We'll see.
The power of a uniform lies in its silence. So I made a video a few months back ranking the world.
It's already over. I'm already cancelled. Don't you guys remember that one picture of the mustache man himself wearing those half pants, I guess? I mean, they did have uniforms and all matched. Certainly more stylish in that sense, I guess. I guess. They were villains with style. Crazy.
World's best looking uniforms. Now, of course, my beloved Marine Corps ended up on top, but I couldn't help but notice in the comments a number of people brought up, what about the SS uniforms? What about Nazi uniforms? Now, as a bit of a World War II history buff and a guy here on YouTube that talks about men's style, I thought, who better to answer the question? Why were the Nazis so stylish? Seriously, the SS uniforms haven't been worn for coming in on 80 years, yet people still talk about them as the most stylish uniforms ever made. So why are the SS uniforms so iconic? Find out.
That's a good question. I'm assuming somebody who was making clothes, certainly, most absolutely, 100% cooked out here. The question is, who cooked? The right is called Nazis, yet they don't even have matching uniforms. Shaking my head. How can they be Nazis then? Even worse, they're not even German.
Gents, in today's video. So to understand why the German uniforms, specifically the SS uniforms of World War II, are so iconic, we need to go back and look at the unification of Germany in 1871. Otto von Bismarck basically unified the German states.
Otto von Bismarck! First German Chancellor! The man.
To defeat the French, and in 1871 unified all of these different states that spoke a similar language but had very different looking militaries, very different customs into one country, Germany. Now for the next 40 years, German uniforms were all over the place in terms of makeup, color, the way that they were put together. Pretty much the only common thing we saw in a lot of these uniforms was the famous pickle helmet, with the spike on top. That right there was pretty much the standard until 1910. What happened? All of a sudden, we saw a standard go across the German Empire. Basically, you needed to conform to gray. Now this was...
By the way, that hat looked really stupid. But it's probably definitely a deadly weapon. Like, just imagine, like, somebody stabbing you with, like, just like running head first towards you. You probably get stabbed. That's probably a weapon. Like, that guy kind of looks like you. I'm not that old yet. I'm not that old. Not yet.
A practical move. All the colors before really symbolized particular units, allowed commanders to be able to see what's going on in the battlefield. But as war changed, all of a sudden we started heading into World War I. Really, it was going to be something with trench warfare. It was something where maneuver and having the generals right there on the field maneuvering just wasn't going to happen. So we saw things going towards practicality, going towards a less...
Yeah, those, like, steel helmets, I've held one at one point. They are heavy as fuck. No, not literal makeup, like the makeup of the uniforms, how the uniforms are made up, in what way, style and stuff. Those helmets are heavy, and like I'm kind of surprised. Like that's some solid helmets. They had some solid helmets back then. Isn't this the dude that said when France sneezes, the rest of Europe catches a cold? Well, that France isn't even gonna sneeze, right? They're just gonna give up, right? They just surrender to the cold.
expensive material, something that could be mass produced and worn by an entire nation. By 1915, we're a year into World War I, and all of a sudden, all those flamboyant uniforms, all those colors, all that's gone out the window for practicality. In fact, you really couldn't see much difference between enlisted men and officers. Uniforms had become very simple, very clean. And by clean, I don't mean free of dirt. I mean simply there was nothing to grab onto. All of a sudden, it was like if it was excess material, if it was something that could get snagged down in the trenches, you got rid of it. In fact, that pickle helmet all of a sudden was gone in 1916, and we saw the introduction of the famous helmet, which would go on to serve the German military for a long time, known as the Stahlhelm. Now, in 1918, Germany...
Der Stahlhelm. Why the uniform had an Xbox logo on the back? So you can like punch them, or maybe it's just like to like have a target. It's just a target.
Surrendered. The Great War was over. You had millions of soldiers returning. All of a sudden, the military went down to a force of about 100,000. And uniforms during the next 10 years, they really didn't go anywhere. In fact, it was just things left over from the Great War. They really didn't have the money. Hyperinflation was picking up, and this was just a tough time.
Hyperinflation was picking up. That doesn't even describe it. Ever paid basically $23 million for a single egg? Were you ever in the position where people were handing up money in baskets, in huge baskets? Yeah. Ever lived in a time where bread was essentially worth like 12, 20 kidneys? Pretty much.
For the military and its uniforms in general. That being said, things started to change in the late 1920s, early 1930s as we saw the German rearmament program come up. So this is all of a sudden the rise of the Nazi Party. All of a sudden, it is a priority to make Germany strong, to make Germany proud. And all of a sudden, we see the military uniforms start to get a makeover, get money put into them. This was just something they're getting.
Bro really must have, right? Bro really must have had diabolical charisma. Because look at him. His hairline is weird. His mustache is weird. He doesn't have a right jawline. Like, Clavicula would just argue with him and just mog him. Nope, you did. And you didn't either, kiddo. What am I, the kiddo, buddy? You were younger than me. But yeah, it's just like, he must have had insane charisma. Because he's not mogging anybody. Even has like a short jaw and stuff.
Better materials. All of a sudden, they're getting things to fit. Now, I've got to be honest, there's nothing to me extraordinary about the regular German military uniform in the 1930s and throughout World War II. This is something that it looks good, but I think there are a lot of other uniforms out there that would give it a run for its money. But the SS uniform, that is something different. Now, at this point, some of you guys may be asking, wait a minute, isn't the SS part of the German military? Technically, no. The SS was a paramilitary organization and initially started off very small, the Hall Guards. Basically, these were the bodyguards for Hitler. Hitler, when he rose to power, he didn't have the trust of the military. He was always suspect of it. So he wanted to have his own group, his group right around him that trusted him, was loyal directly to Hitler, and protected him. But the SS was the organization in which we think about those black uniforms. The symbolism, such as, the death's head, the SS symbol right there, that is what I'm talking about mostly in today's video. Now, Heinrich Himmler was the head of the SS, and it was divided into three parts. You had the General SS, and their job was to make sure that all of the Nazi policies were enforced throughout Germany. Then you had the Armed SS, and this is where a lot of military confusion comes in, because these guys would fight right next to military units, but they didn't usually have like tanks or any artillery or anything like that. They were more of foot soldiers, but they could also go in and they would go through and sometimes.
Dude is standing with aura. Can we even say this? Are we getting cancelled? Can we even say this? Is YouTube gonna nuke me? Hold up. Now, God, the uniforms do look good. They do look good. Full leather, long coat. Yeah, kinda. I mean, they look good. They look good. Too bad they're associated with evil.
Clean up afterwards, hence all the atrocities that are attributed with them. These were the hardcore Nazis. In fact, that third group, the Death's Head units, these were the guys in charge of the concentration camps. Now, the SS was evil. That's beyond debate. When we look at the millions and millions and millions of Slavs, Jews, just Poles, people killed throughout the world by the
Disabled, political opponents, people who ran away. Yeah, we had a lot of people there. We had a lot of people there. We had a lot of people there. It's basically everyone that wasn't ethnically German, right? They would even, if they could have, they would have even probably included Italians. Um, Obviously a large portion of the French, right? Fuck, if we getting cancer, we getting it with style, I guess.
SS. I mean, it's horrible. Yet, 100 years later, we are still ranking their look, their uniform, as one of the most stylish that many people have ever seen. Why is that? The answer is quite simple. One, the uniform was a good product. It was well designed, it was adorned with recognizable symbols, and it was modeled by fit individuals. Now, that reason alone could have propelled this uniform to stardom, but there were two other reasons of why this uniform became.
I mean, that makes sense, right? They are, right? See, the uniforms are, I think most uniforms look good if they're modeled for fit people, right? I don't think that somebody in a fat, would somebody fat look good in that? That's like the question, which honestly, I don't think so.
Became iconic. Next up, we've got exposure. This is the reason these uniforms became iconic even in their own time period. Basically, you had Germany in the 1930s and even throughout the war using propaganda. They had propaganda ministers. They had filmmakers come in and they put these uniforms in the best light possible. And finally, let's talk about reinforcement and repetition. So, the reason these uniforms are iconic today is because they keep popping up on the screen. Hollywood keeps reaching back and pulling these things out. They love the symbolism. They love the look.
True. That is very, very true. Yeah. Lots of movies use these. That's very true. Gonna get the similar style suit blazer tailor for me now. Fitting is the most important thing for fashion, probably. And bro, why would you do that? It won't look as good, but it wouldn't look bad. Those are good uniforms, you know? Yeah, sure. Definitely. Absolutely. They do look good. They do look good. Definitely.
Again, it's a good product. So when they put it out there, it's very easy for us to be able to spot the bad guy. It's very easy for us to see the villain because he's dressed in black. So let's go deeper on the design of the SS uniform and start this off by dispelling one of the biggest myths out there, and that is Hugo Boss did not design the SS uniform. They manufactured these uniforms. They made them, but they did not design them. Now,
yeah, that's a common misconception that people say, right? But they just manufactured them. Now the question is, who made it? Because I don't know that either. Like, who designed it? That would be interesting to know.
the designer was actually a relatively unknown Nazi designer by the name of Karl Diebitsch. Now, Diebitsch was an early Nazi.
Diebitsch. Interesting. He pronounced that pretty well, by the way. Interesting. Wow.
Sympathizer, joining the party in 1920s. And if you know your history, in the 1920s, the Nazi party had some ups and downs, a number of members killed. In the 1930s, though, he came back and rejoined the SS and put his unique skills to work designing uniforms with another gentleman named Walter Heck. Now, as good as these Nazi designers possibly were, what made them really smart is that they stole timeless designs. These guys didn't reinvent the wheel. They didn't start from scratch. They actually reached into history and pulled out symbols and colors that had worked. Now, why the color black was chosen, there's a few theories out there. Some people say secretive societies and just that the color black had that mystery, had that look they were searching for.
It's also like, I'm gonna be straight honest, black looks good on most people. Black looks good on most people, right? Not gonna lie, like, I wear mostly like dark colors, right? Gray, black, dark brown, maybe some darker greens, right? But yeah, black looks good on most people. There's a good chance that if you have a black piece of clothing, it probably looks decently good. Regarding you wearing a resident black emo cloth wearer, nope. It's just darker colors overall. I don't like bright colors. That's all. Good looking man. Stop simping for the Nazis! Please, I beg of you!
Other people say they were inspired by the Jesuits. If you know anything about that Catholic organization, a little bit of, the higher educated, basically the higher class. My belief is that they stole from their own history. Check out this guy, August von Mackensen. He was a living military
August von Mackensen. Interesting.
legend in the 1930s. A field marshal during World War I noticed the skull and crossbones right there in the hat. You can't miss it. What does this symbolize? For many people, it symbolizes death. But for others, it's a symbol of a rejection of death, of spitting in death's face, that you take no prisoners and that you will not be taken alive. Now, at the height of the power of the SS, it can be argued that its leader, Heinrich Himmler, was the second most powerful man in Germany, right next to Adolf Hitler. If you think about it, here's a guy that had no prior military experience, was relatively young for the position he had, and had a big feeling of inadequacy. In fact, there's a lot of stories that talk about just Goebbels and all these generals just kind of, laughing, because he was, if you look at his uniform and the details on his uniform, he was trying to put anything he could on there. He didn't have medals from the war.
So, in other words, little bro, it was insecure as hell. Interesting. It was an insecure little man. Funny.
And he started going down that slippery slope of trying to look like he was decorated, yet he truly wasn't a combat veteran. Part of the whole symbolism that went into making sure those uniforms were immaculate and the best ones out there was because of the inadequacies that Himmler felt. Now, this next symbol is probably the most recognizable Nazi symbol in the world, and that is the swastika. But what's interesting here, and just like all the other symbols I'm talking about, the Nazis didn't come up with this, they stole this. And in fact, the word swastika,
they're all thieves. Stealing. Well, as people say, sharing is caring. And they were like, you know what? Sharing is actually, I'm gonna own it. Simple as that. Yeah, that one, that symbol.
in Sanskrit means conductive to well-being. This was a good luck charm. You look throughout Asia, you throughout parts of the world for hundreds and hundreds of years. This symbol has been out there, and it's been something that you see on temples, you see being used, and it always meant something good until in the 1930s, the Nazis took this over, and yeah, it all went downhill. Now, why this symbol just looks...
Yeah, they're basically like, really, what they really just did, they took the symbol, flipped it to a certain angle, and now they were like, that's us now, that's ours. That's our symbol now. They stole it from us. No wonder you want to get clothing like that. I have a feeling. You're not gonna go into politics, right, buddy? Are we sure you're not going to go into politics, right? Failed judge goes into politics. I have a feeling.
So striking on this uniform is the use of color and contrast. We've got a black uniform, a very stark color. All of a sudden you bring in a power red with the white. This combination right here, that red, white, black on a black uniform, is striking, grabs attention, very easy to spot. And now let's talk about the symbol of the Schutzstaffel, aka...
That's very true, right? The colors are very contrasting. That makes sense that stands out. Yeah, that's logical.
The SS. By the way, gents, that was not easy for me to pronounce. I don't even know if I got close, but I appreciate you giving a like to today's...
Hold up, I'm gonna try and pronounce... Wait, I'm not gonna pronounce it, because I might die. I'm not gonna say it. It's gonna get demonetized. This probably already is demonetized. I'm gonna say it anyways, who cares? Let me go back a little bit.
The SS. By the way, gents, that was not easy for me to... Grabs attention, very easy to spot. And now let's talk about the symbol of the Schutzstaffel, aka...
That's the Schutzstaffel. That's the right pronunciation. Schutzstaffel.
The SS. By the way, gents, that was not easy for me to pronounce. I don't even know if I got close, but I appreciate you giving a like to today's video if you like these deeper history videos. I've got a whole list of them I want to create, but I want to hear from you guys if you like videos like this. Now, the SS was based off an ancient rune, and that rune symbolized the sun. What they did is they turned it, and they actually changed a bit of history and said, no, this thing actually
They just flipped it a little over to a little different angle and just called it that now. That's mine now. Don't dig your nose in stupid stuff. The wife was what more nice, not gonna lie, probably.
Actually represents victory. So you saw the SS, which represented the name of the unit, but it also represented victory, victory. And the guy behind this, remember that graphic designer Walter Heck we talked about earlier? Yeah, he had a hand in this. And on an interesting side note, this symbol became so powerful in Germany that they actually adjusted their typewriters to have the symbol on it. So at this point,
that's interesting. Okay, that one I didn't know. That's a new fact. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Wow, the self-glaze is crazy.
we have the uniforms designed, we have these amazing symbols. Now let's go into Hugo Boss. So he did manufacture the uniforms, and the way it works is a lot of manufacturers, they don't do the designs. They actually take the design and then they execute on it. And this was also a time period when a lot of clothing was made specifically for the individuals. I know when I was in the Marine Corps, it was something I could go to the Marine shop and I would pay extra and I would have the uniform tailored and cut to me. This was a big thing, especially in the 1930s. And if you were also going to be filmed, if you were going to be at an event that Hitler was going to be at, you made sure everything was adjusted. Tailoring was big. And that is a big part why when we see these pictures that the uniforms just look amazing. Not only were they well designed, but they were on fit young men who had this clothing tailored to fit them. And on a side note, Hugo Boss actually died in 1948. His son took over the company, and him and his business.
Interesting. How do you say Hugo Boss in German? It's literally Hugo Boss. That's it. It's that simple. This dude was cooking. That's cool. It's just like crazy. It looks really they look really good. Hey, should there ever be a totalitarian regime again? Take some good inspiration for good style. At least make yourself look like the villain. Thank you. Appreciate it. If I'm gonna be killed by somebody, at least make it be in style. Thank you.
Business partners turned it into the giant, brand that it ended up becoming in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. But what's interesting is you go back and you look at in 1945 during the denazifying process, which they would make you take all these classes, basically figure out what level of a Nazi you were. He was actually considered to be one of the lower level and went through and paid a fine. And didn't pay a fine because he had worked with the Nazis. He paid a fine because he used 150 slave laborers. In fact, it can be argued the greatest thing the Hugo Boss company ever did was rebrand itself. But damn, those Germans do make some good fragrances. So we can see that they had a great product. Now let's talk about exposure. And what was happening in the late 1920s, 1930s, we saw the explosion of media. All of a sudden, you could film something and you could show it on the other side of the world and people could actually see what was there. This was something totally new. Germany was taking full advantage of this. They not only had people that worked in propaganda, they had a huge propaganda budget. As an artist or
yeah, a propaganda they're a literal literal institution for propaganda. They literally studied this shit, and that was also their most powerful weapon. Without this, essentially, they wouldn't even gotten as far as they have, right? Without that stuff, right? Because otherwise, you don't get properly into the heads of people. Like, they literally know their shit when it comes to manipulation. They do know this.
Former artist, Hitler knew the power of image, the power of this new thing called video, and he wanted to make sure the world saw Germany as he wanted it to be seen. Propaganda becomes ineffective the moment we become aware of it. Joseph Goebbels. Now, if you've studied World War II in Nazi Germany, you've heard of Joseph Goebbels, but not as many people know that he was the minister of propaganda. I mean, what is that? What country? I mean, you look through most countries, they don't have a minister of propaganda. This was unheard of at a time when all of a sudden media was exploding. The power that Goebbels had here was amazing. Now, Goebbels was a politician, and politicians were as bad then as they are now. They're not good at making anything except making themselves look good at our expense.
Pretty much. Pronounced is Joseph Goebbels, by the way, in German, right? It's not Joseph here. It's crazy, right? I think this is the only case of any such ministry that I've heard. And any minister like that. I don't think any other country ever had that, right? Because there have not been any great wars or such something like that right around the time when I guess we're still experiencing propaganda. It's just people are now a lot more aware of it, right? Like the post with the child marriages from the UN, right? That's propaganda, right? We're a lot more aware of that. I wonder if that would work still today. If somebody came up with that, I guess this would only work if a country was like at their lowest. Then somebody could attempt the same thing again. But a country would really need to be at its absolute lowest.
No, he had a secret weapon. Actually, it wasn't his, it was Hitler's. Does the name Leni Riefenstahl ring a bell? Most likely not. She's one of those Nazis that isn't really talked about, yet
Leni Riefenstahl. Interesting.
she had a huge impact in the way that the world saw Nazi Germany in the 1930s. To me, what makes Leni so interesting is that she was a true believer. In 1932, she saw Hitler speak, and she just hook, line, and sinker bought into what the guy was saying. She talked about it was like a religious experience. She talked about having a vision. This was a very talented woman. This was someone that...
So she just developed a crush on the mustache man. That's interesting. That's interesting. But then again, I'm not really surprised, am I? I'm not really surprised. There's women out there gooning to Wade Wilson. It's over.
It was at the forefront of making movies. Somebody that had real skill. She got introduced to Hitler. Hitler absolutely loved what she talked about. He had a deep connection. In fact, Himmler would become very jealous of the relationship because she could go directly to Hitler. And all of a sudden, he started painting his ideas of how he wanted this idea for a film to be. She was given a budget, and all of a sudden, she started making propaganda films that did not, for most people, didn't even seem like propaganda. The films Victory of the Faith, the film Triumph of the Will, these would go on to be watched by millions around the world and inspire many people of German descent to return to Germany and serve in the military. She was also commissioned to film the 1936 Summer Olympics in Berlin, where for the first time ever, she was using tracking shots on athletes, and a film came out of that called Olympia, which was very well received. And
interesting. Very interesting. Yes, wasn't he really popular? Dozens of love letters. Pretty much, yeah. Interesting. Okay. God, not the Olympics.
She even caught the famous footage of Jesse Owens winning his gold medals. Now, once Germany invaded Poland, a lot of her work slowed down. She actually did accompany German troops into Poland and filmed some of that, but ended up returning. A lot of the propaganda all of a sudden started coming directly into Germany, making sure that the people, weren't aware of what's going on outside the world, keeping them very focused in on their mission. Point being is, we had fanatics. We had people that truly believed they were right, with talent, with skill, creating films that they felt were authentic. And when people watch this stuff, they believed it was authentic. And that's what's so scary about this. Again, you had a great product. You had, people that were pushing this with a huge budget around the world up to the start of the war. And now let's talk.
And obviously, you had new technology that a lot of people wouldn't even be able to properly comprehend, right? Up until later. So that was also something, right? And like what you could do with that new technology. People forget that a lot.
About repetition. Let's talk about what Hollywood...
That's why I'm saying, like, if you were right now the way you are, right? If you were born during that time, you would be part of it, 100%. The people that say, "Yo, I would be like a freedom fighter. I would be like anti," and like, no, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. Worst case scenario, you're part of it. That's a funny thing.
Feeds us. So when Hollywood needs a bad guy, who do they pull on? They pull on the Nazis. They pull on the SS. Because first up, all bad guys wear black, right? So it fits in with the stereotype. And they just bring in great looking uniforms. Oftentimes we have very charismatic actors. We like to have a good villain. It makes for a good movie. And again, it's reinforced that these guys dress well, that they are very, and that's what makes them seem so evil in a lot of these movies, is that they are smart, they are intelligent. And at the
Christoph Waltz. Surprised to see this man here. That's kind of funny. That's kind of interesting. You wouldn't expect that. Hello.
the slightest without any hesitation. They will kill you. And this is something that Hollywood again and again repeats and puts out there. So it's always top of mind. It's always something that we're seeing. It's something that again and again is imprinted on us. And if marketing will tell you anything, repetition, repetition, repetition. It creates sales and it keeps them top of mind. So whenever we're thinking about a uniform, we just go back to this one we just saw in a movie a few months back. Yeah, that Nazi SS uniform. As for my personal opinion, not that this video didn't have a lot of that, I do think they are very strong, striking uniforms. When I look at these, I'm like, wow, this is power. This is dark. This is definitely the uniform of somebody that, wants to send that signal of intimidation. Black is a color that does that. Power, aggression. Do I think they're one of the top uniforms of all time? Probably
Probably.
not. I do definitely think.
Well, looking at how much it is used and looking at how much it is glazed, I'd actually say so. I'd actually say that it is. Honestly, I mean, it's so much used and like it's crazily overused in like movies. I mean, there's people still dressing up like that. Yeah, black suits itself is quite intense. Yeah, I disagree with that because it's very. I think, right. If you show them some decently popular military, they probably still wouldn't be able military uniform. They still wouldn't be able to point it out. But like if you show most people the Nazi uniforms, they'd probably be able to point out that it is from those people.
They are a bit overrated for what it is. But guys, I want to hear from you. What's your opinion? Did I miss something? Let me know down in the comments. What do you think of the SS uniforms? Which uniforms do you think are better? Which uniforms maybe should I cover next in another video? And speaking of other videos, what video to watch next? How about...
Anyways, so yeah, that's pretty much the end of the video. I'd say they look, if it's properly tailored, yeah, I think they look great, but like they're attached to so much evil that it kind of doesn't matter that they look great. Even if they look great, it doesn't matter, right? They're still attached to one of the most monstrous things in human history. So not really a good what's the word, a good just like a good history to it. Not a good vibe. Anyways, like, comment, and subscribe.